would like to begin by sharing one experience. And when I was working in office, there was a brother, and he was my senior. And he told me many times, every time I would meet him, he would tell me that, God tells me that if I once visit Mount Abu with you, then my life will change. And every time he met me, he would say that. And then I told him, you're most welcome to visit Mount Abu. And every time I would give him the invitation, he would turn it down. And then 2 years passed, and this continued. And after a point, there was one day when he said, my life would change if I went to Mount Abu. So I asked him, what is stopping you from going to Mount Abu? Every time I'm giving you an invitation, it is Baba's home, it is your home, you're Baba's child. Why can't you go to Mount Abu? There are so many programs being organized, you just visit. So then he told me, no, I can't. So I said, why don't you share with me why you can't? So he said, okay, let me share with you. So I'm a chain smoker, and I smoke at least 10, 12 cigarettes a day. And I can't stop that. And I can't do it there. So that's why I can't go to Mount Abu. So I told him that, just listen to what you're saying. And just listen to how you sound when you say that because you can't leave cigarettes, you will leave God. So you just listen to what you're saying. And then he said, this is how it is, that when you can't leave the bad, you can't embrace the good. And he said, it's not like I don't have the intention. I've tried many times, but I've not been able to. So why I'm sharing this experience is because you see, one little habit can stop you from experiencing the happiness, the bliss of being in Baba's home. And just think about this one little thing, that maybe he would have gone to Madhuban for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. But Madhuban is like, Madhuban is like a sample of heaven on earth. And when one goes to Madhuban, you actually feel, that this is the closest that we could create to a Satyugi creation. So although, it's not Satyug or not anywhere close, but still the closest, because at least, you see that Satyugi culture of love and harmony across, whatever you do and whatever you have, that's there in Madhuban. So so if a person is, is not able to take benefit of this fortune of going to Baba's home in this Sakar world because he has a bad habit, just think about how much careful we have to be to go to Baba's home, which is the soul world and which is the new world. And we cannot go to the soul world and the new world without being completely pure. And you see, this is a world of sorrow. And many a times people intend, even in bhakti, those who don't know that Baba has come and Baba is preparing us to take us back to the soul world and the new world, even when people don't know that much, they express their desire, that I want to be free from this world of sorrow. But can you be free without being pure? Can you be free from the Dukha Dham if you don't become pure? Because purity is mandatory for the soul world and the new world. And Baba always speaks of a story where there is this king who marries a fisherwoman, and that fisherwoman, she leaves that work and she comes to the king's palace to stay. And the palace has everything, and the palace has all the comforts, the riches, the treasures, the facilities. And yet, that woman, the new queen, she starts feeling very depressed gradually. And then once she expresses her desire to go back to the, to that shore where they used to fish, and she says, I don't want to stay here, I want to go back. So the king says, what is it that you don't have here? Here you have everything. And then why do you desire to go back? Then she says, I miss the smell of fish. And I cannot live without that, So the king says, that's a dirty smell. Why do you miss that? So she says, I don't know, but I miss that dirty smell and I cannot live without that. So just think about, if you have not purified your sanskar, even if you get something that is better and purer and richer and everything, will you find peace in it, or will you gradually not like it? And I was just one day thinking about this, that even in the mundane world, we desire for many things. We desire for a higher position, a good job, salary, comforts and other stuff, and whatever money can buy. But are you mentally ready to work your way through it? So are you mentally ready to put in that kind of labor and dedication? And there is always sacrifice involved, and nobody becomes big without sacrificing. Even in this old world, leave alone going to Satyug, but you cannot even become rich and famous in the old world if you don't sacrifice anything. And if you hear the stories of the rich and famous and successful in the old world also, you sometimes wonder that, their life is full of so much sacrifice. And just think about, all the people who you see working at big ages, and they are, doing their job, and so it's not easy. And Baba tells us that now when you cannot even have a big position in the old world without sacrificing, the comforts and the luxuries, and even if you buy a lot of comfort and luxury in the old world, if you sit and what do you say, if you sit and devour it or you sit and enjoy it, you're not going to get big. So Baba says that even in the old world, you need a big position. You have to do a lot of things which you wouldn't ordinarily do. And in the new world, when you want a new position, a big position, that's you want to be a king in Satyug, or you want to be very close to Baba when you go back home, you have to make the effort to be completely pure. And complete purity is about a lot of effort in this old world, because in this world everything about us is practically impure, is it not? So everything that we do, everything that we have, everything that we are attached to is impure. So we have to make a lot of effort to be pure so that we can go back home and go back to the new world. And I was just thinking that when you're not prepared for something, can you even have the courage to create a thought to be there? When you're not prepared for something. And I'll tell you one thing. There was this one brother, and he was a Kumar, and he was preparing for civil services. And he was very afraid of talking to people. He would generally, camouflage it as people are not good, and you don't find meaningful conversation with people. But he actually had some kind of, aversion to talking to people, and he was not very open to talking to people, and he would just sit in one corner and keep studying. And then he would keep failing every time he attempted. And then he came to the center, and he told me that I have been giving many attempts for the exam, and I'm pretty good at my preparation, and I'm also studying a lot, but why am I not clearing? So I asked him, do you have any fears about after clearing the exam? So do you have any fears about, so would you like to share something about your fears that are inside? So he said, yes, I have a lot of fear about, if I clear the exam, then I will have to deal with a lot of people. And now that you're telling it, I am aware of it, that I have that fear, and I always tell God, okay, when it comes to it, I will do it. But there is this fear that I will have to deal with juniors and seniors and colleagues and public and, every department. And I have this fear somewhere inside, and I don't have that kind of openness in talking to people. So then I told him, you see, when you have a fear inside you, that when you have a fear of something, or you're not ready for the new situation mentally, your mind is not very open to every aspect of the new scene, then you're kind of blocking your own progress. Because it's very subtle, but what you're saying is, I want to be there, but I don't want to be there. So if you're not completely ready mentally and with your heart, and you're not fully embracing everything that the new scene brings with itself, then obviously it's an act of self-sabotage, is it not? And let's say you want a promotion, but you are afraid of the super boss, and you know that after promotion you will deal with the super boss directly, then isn't that a fear that's stopping you from making that leap? It is. So it's very subtle, but you see that in the world, when we operate, when we souls are playing our roles, then it is our vibration and it is our intention that creates our reality. And if our intention doesn't have that determination, and if our vibration is not that of a very open heart and open mind, and you're not really welcoming something, then how will you attract that? That's not going to happen. And the second thing is, how can you be open-hearted and open-minded about something that you are not ready for according to your sanskar? So obviously, when you don't change your sanskar, then that sanskar will create this subtle fear, and that sanskar will stop you from that next leap and jump. So even if it's about it's about very little things in life, maybe just about, money. If you're not open to the fact that you will have to manage money when it comes, and you have a fear about, how will I manage money, then you're stopping that, even that earning from coming. So you have to be, you have to understand this is a certain law. And when it comes to going back to the soul world and going to the new world and taking a big position in Satyug, so ask yourself, are your sanskars in consonance with, going back to the soul world and living in Satyug in a big position? Because if they are not, then your sanskars are in a way, impeding that purusharth that you're doing. So maybe you are releasing, maybe you are waking up at Amrit Vela, doing all that Baba says, listening to the Murli, eating pure food and all, but then you see that there are other things which are being stopped because you are not that open-minded about going to the soul world and to Satyug. And I remember there was this one brother, and he had been in Gyan for 1 year, and then when I asked him, do you want to go to Satyug? So he said, I don't know. I mean, whenever I think about going to Satyug, it kind of scares me because I don't have anything that I have here in Satyug, because I'm pretty much operating with attachment and vices and other stuff, and I'm addicted to very Kaliyugi things, and maybe the phone, and I really have a fear of leaving the phone and going to Satyug. So just think about how, we are collectively and individually creating obstacle in Baba's path, in Baba's creation of heaven, if we are not mentally, physically, and most importantly, according to our sanskars of purity, ready to go to the soul world and to Satyug. And I find this topic particularly relevant today because today Baba asks us many times, do you want to go home? Yes, do you want to go home? Because you see, everybody says, Mujhe mukti de do, and there are so many people who are, leaving their homes and going and doing tapasya for mukti, and people say that we want to go home. But Baba says, do you understand that home is a pure world and you cannot go there without being pure? And if you're not being pure, then what you're saying and what you're actually intending are two different things, and they are not in alignment, because without purity, how will you go home? And if you're not being pure, there is obviously some resistance to going back home. How many of you are afraid to go home? Yes, there are Baba's children who are afraid to go home, and they are not ready to go home. And just think about, Baba is teaching us, educating us, giving us so much sustenance. And what are we doing? With our own actions and our stage, we are impeding the process for which Baba has come. Baba has come for taking us home, and we are just impeding the process by saying that we are not ready. And I will tell you one thing. There is a brother who is almost 90 years of age, and recently he had a physical condition, and in that physical condition the doctors said that this is incurable, but we will just make your life, worth living until you die. So we will just take care that you live in proper conditions so you're able to manage your body until you leave it. So he got very upset and he said, I want to be cured. And then there was family around, and there was one person in the family who tried to ask him whether he never thought of death at the age of 90. And he must have thought about it, and he must have, someday prepared himself for it. And he said, no, never until today have I thought about death. And I always felt that, even if there is a disease, I will just get better, and I'm not mentally ready for death. So that person in the family, he contacted me and he said, do people not think about death? So I said, they don't until they consciously do. Because if you don't consciously think about death, our sanskar is to always, think that the whole world will die, we'll only be living alone, and nobody, and I am going to outlive everybody around me. And that's the sanskar, because in bhakti, that's the goal. You keep living and living and living and never die. And people are doing so much in bhakti to keep living. And when we come to Baba, Baba tells us this, Baba gives us this knowledge that this is an old world and you should want to leave this world. And it's not like Baba is giving us a choice, because we have to anyway. And Baba is very sweet. Baba on the one hand asks us that, do you want to die, want to go home? And then next step he says, even if you don't want to, doesn't matter, because you have to. But still he asks whether you want to go home, because Baba tells us that this is the time to go home, and this is the time for the old world to finish, and you have to go home anyway. But it is not about when you go home, but it is more about how you go home. Yes, and this is a very important thing that Baba alone teaches us, that it's never a matter of when you go home, because whenever you go home, going home is a good thing, but how you go home is very important. And just think deeply about this, that this is the time to go back home. And I love going back home from the world of sorrow to the world of peace. Do you understand? The world we'll be leaving is the world of sorrow. Although that we are so habituated to that sorrow that you get used to everything. You get used to a broken tap also, and then you miss the broken tap when it's replaced. But this is how it is. So it's a broken world, and there's no use attaching yourself to it. And you have to leave this world for good, and we have to all go to the world of peace, our sweet silence home, and that's home, and this is just a stage. And the more you realize it, you want to go home. But then the truth is, just wanting is not enough. You have to prepare yourself to go home, because you cannot go home without being absolutely pure. And I always think about this subject of purity at least for 10 minutes every Amrit Vela, because I feel that purity is one of the most difficult concepts to totally grasp. And today when I was thinking about purity, I felt that purity is a stage where you are doing everything with this body as a master, and there is no compulsiveness. So, so when you talk about going back home and being pure, what that means is you do everything through the body, not as a compulsion of your organs, or not as a compulsion imposed by the old world, but you do everything by choice according to Srimad. So when you reach that stage where you only think the thoughts that are necessary for the creation of the new world, and otherwise you can just think, just stay in silence and in remembrance of Baba. When you only allow your buddhi to focus on the old world, when there's something to be done here, yes, according to Srimad, otherwise your buddhi is always focused on Baba. When you eat only that much and whenever you need to eat because you need to fill this body, and the taste and the food or the lack of food doesn't actually affect you, and when you only listen to that which is necessary for your self progress and for taking the knowledge from Baba, and otherwise you have no compulsiveness to use your ears, and when you just only speak when necessary, but otherwise you're very happy in your silence and you're experiencing super sensuous joy, I think that is a stage of purity. And when the soul is such a master, and you see, when we listen to the knowledge of the soul, Baba tells us that the soul is the master of the body. And Baba always gives this example that this body is like a baja, a musical instrument, and it is up to the musician to play the instrument or not play the instrument. So if you can just if you can have that kind of discretion about whether you want to talk or not want to talk, or whether you want to hear or not want to hear, and there is nothing that pulls your ears, eyes, mouth, taste, or your mind, your buddhi, or there is no relationship that can pull you into sorrow or pleasure, or no situation that can influence your mind the way you don't want to be influenced. If that's your stage, then you are like sitting in this body but ready to leave anytime because it's up to you, and you're not pulled and attracted. You're living like an instrument, and you're living like a master of this body. And whenever it's time to go, you're very happy. You're equally happy to live, and you're equally happy to die. That's the state of being pure. So when you're pure, you don't want to live or you don't want to leave. You are equally happy to live, you're equally happy to leave. And I have heard this thing about Janki Dadiji, that she was in such a state, and although the body had a lot of pain and ailments, and just imagine right now maybe most of you who are listening to the class are young and the bodies don't have ailments or anything, but in spite of all those ailments and the aches and pains that came with it, Janki Dadiji could focus where she wanted to focus and could think the thoughts she wanted to think. The body did not pull her. And if you are that pure, then you are like a lotus, completely unaffected. So you are a master, you live in the body and you use the body to create good karma. You also take care of the body like a good trustee. You live amongst relationships, you live in this old world, you use everything for Vishwa Seva, and you also take care of everything because even neglect is bad karma. So you do whatever is needful, but you are not pulled by anything. That is, nothing affects you beyond your beyond whatever you want to do through that body and relationships. Yes, so somebody has written dukh hai lekin dard nahi, dard hai lekin dukh nahi. Yes, so there is pain but there is no sorrow. So that's the state. So when you are in that state, that's called a pure state, and that is a lotus like state. And just like a lotus is completely detached, and Baba says lotus is the symbol of purity for a reason. And this is the reason that Baba wants you to build that kind of a stage inside. And when you're that pure, then you're ready to go. And Baba says that when you go, when you're ready to go, because you see, Baba has given us the knowledge of the swastik. Yes, and in Hinduism, and in many other religions also, there is this symbol which is similar to the swastik. And in that swastik, there are 4 sections shown, and in the picture of the drama, Baba teaches us that these are the 4 yugas, and then at the end there is the coming of Baba and the confluence age, and then the time for us to go back. And Baba says, this is the time, and I am teaching you how to be ready to go back. And how do you reach that stage where you are in the body and you are in relationships and everything, but you're completely detached and a master? So you reach that stage when you remember Baba, when you accumulate the power of remembrance, and in remembrance of Baba you come into action. But you cannot be a karma yogi without being a yogi first. So you have to first pay attention to Amrit Vela Yoga, and in the morning hours, however long you can, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever you can afford to sit, just sit in complete detachment from the body and consider yourself to be a soul, and nourish yourself with this link of love with Baba. So just take everything from Baba, all the powers, all the knowledge, all the awareness, all the virtues that you need, and just fill yourself with Baba's love and light. And when you do that very well, then even during the day when you're working and using the body, you can have that stage where you are attached to Baba, detached from the body, and doing your work. And when you keep doing this gradually, you get good at it. And then you come to a place where you are able to be in a state where when you are ready to live and ready to leave equally. And Baba says that when you do that, that's the time when you say you're pure and you're ready to go back. And when you go like that, what happens is you don't receive punishment, because there are 2 ways to get pure, through Purusharth and through punishment. So if you have readied yourself through Purusharth, then you don't need punishment to purify you. And the thing about punishment is, punishment harms you in 2 ways. So A, you receive punishment. B, you do not get a good position in Satyug, because you did not become completely pure through Purusharth. So Baba says, if you just pay attention to building this stage through remembrance and through following Srimad, where you completely in a pure stage you leave the body, then you don't get punishment. And when you come to Satyug, you take a good position because you come in the early time. And the greater punishment you receive, the later you come. So Baba says that be ready to go, and you cannot go to the pure world without being pure. So pay a lot of attention to purity and fill your intention to go back home with determination. Yes, Don't look at your heart and ask yourself, are you afraid to be pure? Are you afraid to go home? And if you're attached to anything in this old world, then you're kind of impeding that process of going back home. And you're also causing impediment to Baba's task of taking us all back home. Okay? Om Shanti.